Hi everyone, I am Joseph Giovanelli and I'm here today to present the paper Towards Human-Centric AutoML via Logic and Argumentation, which I wrote with Giuseppe Pisano. So let's start. In relation to data platforms, there are a variety of challenges to tackle. They range from the collection of the data. We can use either a data warehouse or a data lake, to the analysis of such data with the aid, for example, of machine learning. As a matter of fact, machine learning has been previously employed to cope with each and every type of real case problems, and it will be also the topic of this presentation. Finding a solution machine learning tasks means instantiate a machine learning pipeline that is a series of data preprocessing transformations that shape the data so that the machine learning algorithm can extract as many insights as possible. But this isn't an easy task. Indeed, at each step, we have to instantiate a technique among a wide range of techniques. And for each of them, we have a set of hyperparameters to set. Also, each hyperparameter has its own search space. Furthermore, we have constraints. For example, the order of the transformations affect both the performance and the validity of the result. Let us delve into an example. We have two data preprocessing transformations that are discretization, normalization, and a machine learning algorithm, namely decision tree. So with two constraints, one related to the algorithm, namely required discretization while applying decision tree, and one related to the transformations that says non-normalization in pipeline with decision tree, then we have to discuss some machine learning pipelines. Here you can see all the possible machine learning pipelines, but the first and the third cannot be considered valid because we have the decision tree, but not the discretization. And the fourth and the fifth have to be discarded as well because they do have the decision tree and the discretization, but they have also the normalization. So it is not correct. So the data scientist usually adopts some kind of a process model that helps her to gather all the constraints and find a solution that is compliant to these constraints. CRISDM, namely Continuous Standard Process for Data Mining, is considered as the standard process model and encompasses different stages. Formally, we have the domain understanding stage, in which the data scientist works in a close cooperation with domain experts and lists domain-related constraints intrinsic of the data, of the domain, of the problem. Then we have the data understanding, in which data scientists discover data-related constraints due by, for example, the data format. Follows data preprocessing, where the data scientists apply different transformations with their own constraints, and modeling, where machine learning algorithms are applied with the constraints as well. Then evaluation is devoted to measure the performance of such solution, and deployment to provide an implementation. Besides, we have cross-cutting constraints. For example, racism and gender equality have to be treated, otherwise they could lead to social repercussions. So AutoML aims at automating the machine learning pipeline instantiation. They consider a wide search space of data preprocessing transformations and machine learning techniques, and they find a suboptimal solution. Yet they want you to provide a search space considering all the constraints together, but it is not easy actually, because considering all the constraints together is overwhelming. We saw just a simple example. Besides, they use state-of-the-art optimization approaches, but this leads the AutoML tools to be just another black box that the data scientist have to open and understand. So these, for these reasons, AutoML doesn't allow a proper knowledge augmentation. It is not compliant with the CRISP-DM philosophy, where iteration after iteration, the knowledge is augmented by acquiring more machine learning constraints about the problem. So we designed AMLET, that is a human-centric AutoML framework that aims at redeeming the centrality of the data scientist, because she has the duty of revise the AutoML results and supervise the whole process. We leverage logic to give a structure to the knowledge. We can enlist the constraints with intuitive logical formalism, and with argumentation we can deal with inconsistencies among these constraints. Also, we can provide a human readable medium to revise the results. Let's delve into the details. We create a logical knowledge base that can be filled with our logical formalism. So the data scientist just enlists the constraints, and at the end of the day, the constraints are just rules, that kind of rules that can be extracted from machine learning experiments. And AutoML actually perform machine learning experiments. So we designed the AMLET architecture so that the AutoML results can be processed, and we can extract machine learning constraints and update the logical knowledge base as well. So the logical knowledge base is just repository of the constraints that is always up to date. Iteration after iteration, and from the logical knowledge base we create the problem graph with argumentation. So we consider all the constraints together, all the effects of the constraints, and we consider all the inconsistencies. So we can set up the AutoML search space automatically. Also, the problem graph is a human readable medium. Then data scientists and domain expert can consult it and discuss and argument about the results. So let's see how the previous example can be easily handled by AMLET. We have the same transformations, namely discretization and normalization. We have the decision tree as the machine learning algorithm, and also the same constraints, the algorithm related and the transformation related. So the data scientist can encode these informations in the logical knowledge base with a really intuitive logical formalism. We can see in the left-hand side that we have T1 and T2 that are the two transformations. A1 is the algorithm, and then the two constraints, C1 and C2. We develop a demo project in which we wrote a theory that is able to generate from this logical knowledge base the problem graph that we see in the right-hand side. So we see a node for each of the declarations we did, and also all the possible machine learning pipelines. In this graph, the nodes are called arguments, and the edges have the semantic of the attack. So in this case, C1 is attacking P1 and P3 because according to the first constraint, the P1 and P3 pipelines are not valid because they contain the decision tree but not the discretization. Following this reasoning, we have just one machine learning pipeline that is valid, namely the P2. All in all, we propose AMLET, that is a human-centric AutoML framework that redeems the centrality of the data scientist. Indeed, she can just encode the machine learning constraints in the logical knowledge based, and argumentation is leveraged to produce the problem graph that is a human machine readable medium, so that the AutoML search space can be automatically generated, and also the data scientists and the domain experts can revise the current knowledge and discuss about the results. The road for the future works is straightforward. We plan to find a sound formalization of AMLET, and then to develop a working implementation, and finally to test the efficacy and the benefits of AMLET on real case problems. So thanks for the attention.